Hey, how's it going? So, that was a nice debate. I'm trying to understand the source of human morality from an atheist perspective. That's why I'm asking this question. So, let's say, just to give it some context, right? We have like 2 people on a desert island, there's not enough food. Okay.
Excuse me, can you speak up?
Yeah, so you got the first part of it. So let me provide some context for the question. Let's say you have a desert island with 2 people and not enough food. Right? Now, morally, I would probably just die and let the other person live, right? Now, one of the comments that you made that I tend to agree with is that moral truth is demonstrated by its effectiveness. So in this case, it doesn't seem very effective for me. Maybe in a societal context, it's different, perhaps. Maybe in different contexts, different decisions are better in some sense. The source of morality is reason and empathy. So in that case, if, like, let's say there's 2 people in a desert island and one person kills them, they're certainly not empathetic. So if we use that criterion for morality, then they're immoral because they're killing somebody because they're not empathetic. So, I mean, I agree with that also, right? You have to have both of those aspects. It's easy to fall into immorality without reason. It's easy to fall into immorality without empathy.
Speak up just a bit.
Speak up just a bit?
Well,
or pick up just a bit, okay?
Both.
Well, my point is that I'm trying to understand the source of immorality from an atheist perspective. What is it that is good that comes out of reason and empathy? I mean, what is it that's good that comes out of it?
Wow. I'm not sure where we're not communicating, because I feel like this is a question we've answered 3 or 4 times, even here. In your scenario, the desert island scenario, and a lot of these kind of moral mental exercises, they're very difficult moral quandaries, and what they do is they demonstrate that we don't, in that situation, always have the capacity to see far enough. How do you determine whether it's more moral for me to sacrifice myself so that you can live, or you to sacrifice yourself for me to live? It is possible that the moral assessment of that, given all the best information, is neutral. But when I'm talking about what is good out of the benefit relates to well-being, and in this case, we may not be able to see it. In a lot of cases, we can see it. The very simple ones about, you know, killing somebody and what that does with the rest of society. Also, your scenario with 2 people, correct me if I'm just having like a major brain fart here, but it seems to me that as soon as one of them's gone, morality ceases to have any meaning, because there's no more interaction with other thinking beings. And that is where the morality has its consequences. So we cannot then measure it. Am I seeing that wrong?
Well, I mean, some people would say that if I'm the only person in the universe, then morality consists of the consequences, whether they benefit me or not. So
sure.
Right, but I agree with you that in general, it's a societal thing.
Yeah, if I'm the last person alive, I guess everything I think about morality would necessarily be true. I'm not even completely sure.
Well, there's a difficulty here. Morality evolved naturally for the species over long periods of time without much self-conscious reflection because our brains weren't large enough. Once Homo sapiens proper came out of Africa as well, and our brains were big enough for us to start self-reflectively creating genuinely different cultures as we populated across the world, what you've got is a situation where morality is designed best for large numbers of people who have to get along with each other for everyone's survival over the long run. Meaning you're going to get moral breakdowns and confusions and sort of not enough evidence or neutral or conflicting answers when you try to artificially create these, you know, very simplistic 2 people or 1 people.
Yeah,
right? Intuitions will break down. Just, you know. So, right, you have to think about what morality is designed best to do, and that hooks up with what Matt eloquently did with his emphasis on its basis on reason. Because rationality works best when there's large amounts of people able to contribute lots of perspective and evidence and think about the long-term consequences. And that's what we have to keep doing because there's no Sky King to suddenly give us signposts. Or to put it another way, all of these different religious signposts are just simply backing up and reinforcing what cultures long ago independently invented anyway. I refer you to Mark Hauser. Mark Hauser's done studies where people's basic moral intuitions about fairness, trust, empathy, compassion, disgust, and these sorts of things are far older, far more universal than any religion you've ever heard of. Religion is a free rider on this deeper human need for some common core morality in the objective sense, even though there might be from culture to culture this sort of historical traditional penumbra where you do see a lot of disagreement, just because humans have proliferated across a lot of different environments.
Why do we value empathy over greed or self-preservation?
Because the results of empathy outweigh the results of greed.
Okay, empirical evidence.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And your own life will testify to it in the long run.
And by the way, I think there could be such a thing, and there very well may be such a thing as too much empathy. Somebody cares so much that they blind themselves to the other aspects. It's a complicated landscape. Where am I now?
How about here?
During the entire debate, I was incredibly frustrated that every single time you seem to counteract the, okay, atheism is not a position, it's just something. He would consistently come back with, well, you know, new atheists believe, or this atheist believe, and then he try to distance you from them by saying, oh, well, you're different. You know, it was infuriating because saying that like atheism leads to sort of totalitarianism, Stalinism, that sort of thing is like it's just as dishonest as saying like Catholicism leads priests to like rape children. You know,
that's more true.
And actually, yeah, the thing that is like.
Well, I don't think it's more true to say Catholicism leads priests to it. I think it's true to say that Catholicism supports hiding priests who do.
Yes.
Yeah. Because the industry, and it is an industry, of the church is more valuable to the church than those individuals who are abused.
But maybe also a selective recruiting business too.
Yeah, where there's a larger propensity for pederasts to want to get in that environment. Yeah.
And I mean, you know, one could even argue that like forcing priests to suppress their sort of sexuality is also another like.
I've kind of been looking into that. I've been trying to find out what the data indicates whether the Catholic pedophile rate was higher than normal or not. And so far I've seen conflicting data, so I don't know if there's a real
Well,
answer.
I can tell you, I teach a course in aggression and antisocial behavior and collect all kinds of epidemiological data on the most heinous things that human beings do. And if you think about it, it's very, very hard to collect data on these atrocious things. You don't go door to door and say, excuse me, are you a pedophile? You can't ask these questions. So where would we get the data? We have to get it.
We have to raid the Vatican.
We have to extrapolate, or we have to look at court records, extant records, and they're all underestimates.
And we do the same thing with regard to how often rape is actually reported.
Yeah, exactly.
We guesstimate as best we can.
And we know very well that the Catholic Church has conspired to...
Well, that's a problem I have with the successful society scale. I only did homicide because it's the only well-reported crime. And for example, reported rape rates are twice as high as they are in other industrialized countries and 12 times higher than Japan. And people have said to me, well, Greg, why did you just do homicide rates? And I point that out, that in terms of homicide is the only good thing. But I could have plotted up the rape rate data, and that would have said the United States is terrible, but I didn't do it because it's unreliable.
Can I ask you a question that occurred to me earlier? You said you were looking at societal health. Is that what,
yeah,
is that the
generally
phrase you used? Okay. But then everything that you said seemed to be measures of societal unhealth. Did you look at anything
it
positive?
can go both ways. I mean, I'm looking at lifespan, you know, that can be a positive.
Or
A low incarceration rate can be a negative, but it also, if you have a low incarceration rate, that can be a positive.
Like literacy rate, that sort of thing.
well, literacy rate, flourishing, creativity, prize winners, nobility, these kinds of things. The higher reaches of humanity.
Well, you know, basically,
Synergy.
first of all, I'm really the first person to be doing this. And so I'm just kind of doing some basic things here, trying to get some basics in. So I'm just trying to get some, you know, as time goes on, maybe we can get
Maybe this is a seed for collaboration.
Do it, we need more data.
Oh, yeah.
Because despite the fact that the gentleman said history refutes your data, it's nonsense. He didn't present any historical. He presented an emotional, this is what I know to have happened to somebody.
I have
May
a
well be
potential
true.
piece. I could be wrong, but the Mughal Empire was heavily informed by Islam, and it did comparatively well, didn't it? I could be wrong here because I'm not extremely well informed about the relevant period of time, but
The only fully successful societies that exist, have ever existed, are the modern first world nations, because they have very long lifespans, deal prosperity and all that. So I'm basically looking at those right now.
that
There has been
feels
some other
arbitrary.
work done on other societies that also indicates, if you look at all the nations, the religiosity, even there, the more prosperous they are, the lower the religiosity. I've got data problems with the Mughal Empire.
It's also
You do?
only in the
Okay.
modern first world that you have secular nations proper to compare to.
You know, that's not really true.
Really?
I published a little note in Science pointing out that's not true. The Hadza people of East Africa are hunter-gatherers, basically the last hunter-gatherers around. They don't believe in an afterlife. They have no hunting rituals. They do kind of believe the son's a god, but they don't worship it. It just comes up every day. What the heck? They're amazingly low religiosity. They're like the French. So this caused me to reevaluate. I used to think that bad conditions, lots of religion, good conditions, low. But now what I'm saying is that religion only works apparently when conditions are bad. But when you have bad conditions, you can have low religiosity.
Well, it might not be the outlier that you think, because if you're dealing with a society that haven't even reached the Neolithic agricultural revolution, maybe the standards are a little bit different.
Well, there's also other
Maybe
variations.
the religions that we're seeing today were invented after the Neolithic.
Well, even there, the Chinese are they've been much less religious than the Indians, the people of India. There's a tremendous variation, and they live basically the same conditions. So it's not a very tight link. But what I do know is that I've never seen an example of a really successful modern nation with highly experienced religiosity.
I think this hand's been up for a while. Go ahead.
Atheists don't tend to gather in groups that often, so is there anything that atheists can do to dispel the feelings that society seems to have that there is no morality in atheism?
Smile more.
Um,
They'll wonder why you're happy, and they'll wonder what you're up to.
Well,
Second, live a happy, successful
and
life.
then say that you're an atheist.
And
because
tell
most
them you're an
people-
atheist.
But the other thing is, do you think it can ever get to the point where an atheist could be elected president?
Yes.
Sure.
By
We're going
saying,
that
"Hey,
way."
I'm-
I think we're almost there right now.
I think we've already had one. No-
Right, yeah.
Religion in this country is in decline. Gallup data shows that the non-religious, the atheists have tripled since the 1960s. Atheist and agnostics probably make up 20% of the population now. Even the people who accept evolution without a god are edging up. The youngest adult generation is twice as irreligious as the youngest generation was 20 years ago. So the trends are going in the right direction. So this is, all Western nations are secularizing. And the father tonight was right. We are in a post-Christian society in many ways. And so the trends are, the United States is delayed because we have the most dysfunctional system. But hopefully we'll get better on that.
Did you have?
So I was raising my hand for this
Oh,
guy
okay.
here.
Yeah, Matt, this is something that you my name is Matt as well.
I know, that's why.
Okay. Yeah, this is something that you spoke about on Dave's experience one time about accommodation versus, I guess, confrontation of religion. Am I right about that? Matt, you spoke about that on the show at one point. Anywho, my question is, I feel like we, as it is a sort of tag along, what she said, are not very successful in getting the message out there. How can we do a better job of promoting secular values? I feel like there's certainly a lot of resistance from the religious right. Do you think there's any way we can be doing things differently?
Why do you want to do that?
Promoting secular values? Because we live in a country where a fairly substantial portion of the population wants to inflict their religious views on the rest of the population, I would say.
We don't have the right to become,
So
political.
it seems to me what you want is for them to stop evangelizing, not to counter-preach
Well, no,
to them.
It's more like, why couldn't I run for office without having to say that I had a religion? you know, or even, you know, some jobs, you know. I couldn't go get a job at, you know, T. Rowe Price and say, oh, by the way, I'm an atheist. You know, it's one of those things that you hide.